What are you after? Is it money? What? Faced with these sudden and aggressive words, and the sudden change in my boyfriend's father's attitude, I couldn't respond immediately. I will never let my son marry some country farm girl. He shouted his disapproval of the marriage. That's enough! I stood up angrily. I am Nancy, 26 years old. I was set to marry Mike, whom I had been dating since college, in 6 months. The truth is, I have no parents. Both of them passed away from illness when I was in elementary and middle school. Because of this, I was raised by my grandparents until I graduated from high school and moved out. Now, my grandmother has also passed away, and my grandfather Ben lives alone in the countryside. I heard that Mike's father is an executive at a major American car manufacturer. Dad, the executive, wants us to bring our guardians to the family meeting. One day, Mike said this while we were having lunch together. I wondered if it was necessary to emphasize Dad, the executive. But family meetings are expected when it comes to marriage. Okay, I understand, replied. Mike often bragged about his wealthy background, saying his family was prestigious. However, because he was aware of his prestigious background, Mike himself made efforts not to tarnish that reputation. He was very good at Spanish and was certainly one of the top students in his class. I admired his ability to put in the work and achieve results. That's one of the things that attracted me to him. So, Grandpa, I'd like you to come with me to the family meeting. I called my grandfather, who lives far away in the countryside. Of course. Boston is far, but for you, Nancy, I'd be happy to go. My grandfather readily agreed. However, at that family meeting, I ended up experiencing something incredibly painful. When we arrived at Mike's family home, we were led into the living room. The gate was large, and the hallway leading to the living room was wide and long. The room was very clean, and you could see cedar trees from the window. It was clearly a luxurious setup. And the meal was already prepared. It's from the Capitol Grill, Mike's mother Karen told us as she invited us to sit down. It was from a high-end steakhouse. Karen was wearing a beautiful dress, and I felt nervous thinking this is what a lady of a prestigious family looks like. As I awkwardly sat down, Mike's father Tom also arrived. Thank you for coming to the family meeting. He was a large man. He had a confident smile. He reminded me of President Trump. Enjoy your meal, he said. However, this quickly turned into a get out. It didn't even take 10 minutes. So, Ben, what do you do for work? Tom asked. I'm a farmer on an island. As soon as my grandfather answered, Tom slammed his fork and knife on the table. A farmer? At that moment, Tom looked up at me with an incredibly terrifying expression. He looked possessed by a demon. Then, what are you after? Is it money? He shouted in a low, threatening voice. What? I couldn't respond to these sudden aggressive words or Tom's sudden change in attitude. As I struggled to find words, Tom pressed further. You're just a farmer. What? Is being a farmer something to be looked down upon like this? I couldn't understand. Farmers stink like fertilizer. Mike, wake up. She's only after your money. And she's from an island. A country farm girl must be only after your wealth. As Mike's father ranted, Mike. But Nancy went to the same college as me. She's not the type of woman who'd do something for money, he said in a panic. At that moment, stop it already, a voice said. But it wasn't an angry voice. It was a mocking voice. The one who said it was Karen. Karen was laughing and looking down at us. A girl from a farm, Going to the same college as Mike, that's something. So, Nancy wants to marry Mike to join a prestigious family, right? I totally get it. But people from farms are low class. If Nancy really wants to marry Mike, she should cut ties with her family. Then maybe I'll approve. What is this? It was my turn to put down my fork and knife. That's enough! I shouted as I stood up. Then, Grandpa, let's go! I said, pulling my grandfather's sleeve and heading out. Get out! Get out! Tom's voice chased us out like we were dogs. Mike hurriedly followed me outside the gate and grabbed my shoulder. I shook him off. What was up with Tom's way of speaking? I was furious. Grandpa came all the way from far away. I was about to say that I wouldn't marry Mike without an apology from Tom when Mike said something unbelievable. But you know, people generally think marrying a farm girl is doing them a favor. What? I couldn't believe what I was hearing and asked again. Mike scratched his head as he looked at me. Nancy, think calmly. You don't have parents, right? Ben won't be around for many more years. You'll soon be a widow. Marrying into a prestigious family isn't a bad deal. Just deeply apologize to Dad and get accepted into our family. I'll set it up for you. That's what my boyfriend said. I can't believe he said that. A man who proudly calls his family prestigious. A man who tells me to deeply apologize and beg for marriage. Who does he think he is? All my feelings for him vanished instantly. Let's go home. My grandfather, who had been watching, spoke up. Yeah, let's go. I replied and shouted at Mike. This conversation is over. Go marry another woman. I'm glad I realized what kind of person you are. It would have been terrifying if we got married. I was still furious even at the airport where I saw my grandfather off. He said quietly, people might not realize the importance and greatness of farming unless something triggers them. Triggers don't matter. People can't live without food. Even the vegetables those people were boasting about wouldn't be on their plates without farmers. I was so angry at the time that I didn't understand the meaning of my grandfather's words about triggers until later. So, Mike and I broke off our engagement. If you just apologized a little, Mike said even during our breakup. I don't get it. Apologizing is out of the question. I refused. So, I had no regrets about breaking up with Mike. I wasn't depressed and went about my life as usual, but a few months later, I got a call from Mike. What does he want? I'm not reconciling. I told you I'm not going to apologize, I said as soon as I answered. But contrary to my expectations, Mike said, it's not me. Dad wants to apologize. Please let him apologize, he said, stumbling over his words. This completely caught me off guard. I couldn't understand what was happening. Mike continued, we deeply regret our thoughtless remarks and actions. I sincerely apologize. We would like to visit and speak with Ben personally to apologize properly. It was clear from his voice that he was already deeply apologetic. I didn't fully understand, but it seemed like he wanted to talk to my grandfather and apologize. So, I contacted my grandfather without fully understanding the situation. Let's meet at that restaurant where we picked up the delivery, my grandfather said over the phone. What do you mean? I asked. He insulted the farmers, which caused unexpected trouble. My grandfather laughed cheerfully. We arrived at the steakhouse first. About 5 minutes later, Mike and his parents arrived. They were all dressed in black suits. What? I was stunned by their appearance. as soon as they entered the room. "We are deeply sorry for what happened." Tom, in the lead, followed by Mike and Karen, apologized sincerely. I was taken aback by the sudden turn of events. My grandfather, "Do you understand?" said quietly, looking down at Tom, who was deeply apologizing. "Yes, very much so." Still confused by the situation, I silently watched them. Tom began to speak slowly. "A week after my rude remark, suddenly, our research and development department reported that the supply of olive oil had been stopped. And it started going to our rival company. I, as the executive, instructed our employees to investigate the cause. They found out that the president of the olive oil factory was you, Ben." By the time Tom finished explaining, he was trembling noticeably. In contrast, my grandfather stood there calmly with his arms crossed. "Yes, your company was trying to develop a car that uses olive oil as a fuel, as an alternative to petroleum, wasn't it? I was not involved in the development department, so I was unaware of such things." "That's exactly it," my grandfather declared. "Nancy used to say, people can't live without food. Even those boastful about their meals can't eat without farmers. But it's not just about food. Agricultural products are involved in various aspects of daily life. Agriculture creates the very ground we stand on. There is no field unrelated to agriculture as long as we live. Unlike edible olive oil, it's a problem if it solidifies at low temperatures when used as engine oil. My factory put effort into cultivation from the growing stage. With the olives I grew. Do you think a company with an executive who insults farmers will thrive with our help? I've informed my colleagues about the reality, so I doubt anyone will cooperate with your company even if you apologize." My grandfather grew olives on an island and also ran a factory that produced oil from those olives. "We've decided to partner with other innovative companies from now on, so you'll have to manage on your own." "No. Please, anything but that." Tom apologized even more deeply. Listening to my grandfather, I finally understood the situation. So that's what it was. Tom, desperately apologizing, was at a loss for words. It was probably the first time Mike saw Tom like this. Mike felt he had to do something. This time, Mike, "I know I did something terrible to upset Ben. But since Dad is apologizing like this, please forgive me and give us another chance, and help convince Ben," he pleaded with desperate eyes. "Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous." I was furious. So furious that my words came out cold and calm. "Mike, why do you look down on farmers even though you studied biotechnology just like me in college? Why did you choose biotechnology?" "Because it was good for getting a job." I couldn't help but laugh. The fact that he got a job because of his parents' connections was impressive. Any company would ask why you chose your major in college. That answer shows you learned nothing in college. I never liked to boast, but I admired the hardworking Mike. However, while I like the Mike who aims high, I hate the Mike who looks down on others. I can't deal with that. I'm a farmer's daughter, and I got into biotechnology because I wanted to create better and tastier crops efficiently for farmers. Our life goals are completely different." "What?" Mike's tears and snot were all over the floor. It was a pathetic sight to behold. "If Nancy and Ben abandon me, then Dad and Mom will." Karen. I looked at Karen. I felt that Karen was actually the most disrespectful one here. Karen looked back at me. Her eyes were very red, probably from crying a lot. But that didn't matter. I coldly pushed her away. "I respect Grandpa, so I won't cut ties with him." "Karen, you should be the one to be shunned by society." What? Karen had nothing to say in return. Having said what I wanted, please leave, I told them. They still tried to cling, but the restaurant staff kicked them out. In the now quiet room, I only ordered food for two. Grandpa said, "This place is an important customer that uses my olive oil." I explained the situation, so I only ordered for two. Let's take our time and enjoy the meal. And it's been a while since we had a meal together, Nancy. I want to talk about many things. Grandpa smiled and sipped his wine. In the end, this incident led to Tom being demoted from his executive position and eventually resigning. It was because he had to stop the development of engine oil. Mike, who also got in through connections, had no prospects for promotion and was forced to resign due to the cold stares he received. "Now that we have no financial support, please help us." He sent a crying message, to which I replied, "How does it feel to have no financial support?" And then I blocked him. Meanwhile, the engine oil co-developed with another company was doing well and even won some awards for being usable in other machinery. Grandpa also expanded the factory. Aiming for further improvement in crop varieties, I was busy working in the lab every day. During that time, I met someone in the lab and we decided to get married. "Sorry for walking you down the aisle looking so old," Grandpa said, but not at all. I wanted Grandpa to see this, so I'm really happy. I held Grandpa's hand. "Thank you, Grandpa." Even without my parents, I was never lonely because of Grandpa. I'm happy now because Grandpa was there. It's all thanks to Grandpa. I love you, Grandpa. The doors of the wedding hall opened.